Hey, what's up, guys? So we've got King of the Icefield coming up. Basically, what you need to know is that there are about 5 stages of, in which you do certain things to get points. I'm going to tell you what those 5 stages are. So the first stage, you're going to use fire crystals, and you're going to be using charm gear in particular. So you'll basically do your charm gear, and you'll be doing fire crystals at the start of King of Icefield. And again, if you've already done it, and you've already been using your fire crystals, you need to save. Like, in order to make the most out of this event, you basically need to be having all of this stuff saved and in preparation before the event actually starts. The second stage, it's going to be fire crystals, speed ups, essence stones, and then shards for your mythic heroes. So again, just kind of more or less the same thing that you had in the first stage where you're using speed ups and fire crystals, but this is day 2 of it. I would say if you want to be strategic about it, this is the event where you really, if you had any last day fire crystal upgrades, now's the day to blow through those and get through them. For stage 3, this is where you're going to do charm gear and you're going to be doing some of your shard upgrades again. More specifically, really with Lucky Spin in particular. This is where the last day you'll have on Lucky Spin. Because in stage 2, you'll do a lot of Lucky Spin, but in stage 3, that's really when you want to crank it out if you haven't already done Lucky Spin. This is the time to crank that out and then do Charm Gear. For stage 4, stage 4, you basically need to be training troops at that point. Stage 4 is basically a troop training event, so you're just going to blow through speeds. And the idea here is to basically train a stupid amount of troops, get the most amount of points that you possibly can. Obviously, the more you've saved for the event, the better off you're going to be, unless you spend, which case you might be able to even it out. But you're still going to be far better off if you had already started saving long before the event even began. And then for stage 5, you're just going to be doing widgets and, maybe some stone upgrades and then
You do
fire
notice
crystal
the
once again.
artistry in my
Going
technique.
through, doing your building upgrades. I would say this is probably a really good time that, if you hadn't already had that one hero that you haven't really been working on,
Hunt only
maybe
ends.
now's the time you dump some into his widgets. Maybe you dump some into doing essence on some of the heroes that you've already got worked
You
on.
do
But
notice.
that's the time to do that in stage 5 because that'll be the last chance you have. And then stage 6 is where you're going to train and then do chief gear. And again, just like you did in stage 4, if you had trained a bunch of troops, great. If you had some
In the blink
leftovers
of an
from your
eye,
chief gear that you
destiny
wanted to
is
invest
sealed.
in, now's the last time you have. And then for stage 7, you're just going to be gathering, really. I mean, there's some opportunities left for chief
In the
gear if you
blink of
had
an
it,
eye.
but for the most part, by stage 7 in King of Icefield, there's really not a lot of more to do past that. Now, again, if you're wondering how do I know all of this, where do I get this information from in advance, I highly recommend going to the Whiteout Survival Discord. All of this information I fetched and retrieved from a guy named King in the guidance section of the Discord, so thanks to him for all the advice. And again, this is just information that's out there, so if you want to go out and look for it, man, it's there. You just got to go out of your way to get onto the Whiteout Survival Discord and check out the guide section because there's this stupid amount of useful information in there. Now, I will tell you my strategy, and this is more the nuts and bolts of this video, right? Okay, the way I am currently set up, right? You might notice I'm about 103 mil. I'm in state 467.
In the blink of an
I've
eye,
got fairly decent
destiny is
cheat gear and
sealed.
stuff. I haven't really saved a whole lot in regards to those. So I know that now in advance, but I have 2,300 fire crystals. So I'm way saved up on this. Now, something I learned not that long ago is the top right. If you hit this button, it'll tell you how many days of speed ups you have and how many resources you have. It's a super helpful thing to know because obviously you're going to need a lot of speed ups during this event and you're going to be burning through a lot of stuff to be able to match and obviously do better, going through the King of Icefield event. I will say that one of the things that I'm going to dump a lot of time into will be probably speed ups into the troops. So stage 4, I'll probably try to crank out on. For most free to play, though, you really should probably not focus too hard, much, if anything, on stage 4, because I think like a lot of heavy spenders typically dump into stage 4. I would say your best chance really is going to be during like the stages where you're going to be either doing lucky spins. So if you happen to have like 1.2 million gems saved, like I do, you might dump a little bit during the spin event. You can just as easily take your time and really crank out on the things that you know are going to ultimately pay out really good dividends in terms of what you're going to get in the game. It's just a matter of kind of knowing what it is that you're going to be aiming at. Like, for example, I like to focus down 3 heroes, 1 Inf, 1 Marksman, 1 Lancer. So that way I've got the best possible team whenever I'm in PvP, but also even in an arena. It's just knowing that going into this event, you're going to have those things in advance, I think is really kind of what, if anything, it gets me ahead. Like, if you don't already, you probably need to get Jasser's Enlightened Warfare skill all the way up, and then probably do Zinman's skills for basically getting upgrade costs and upgrade construction speed up. And if you haven't already, it's obviously going through the research tree and doing anything that you can do in the growth tab is probably not a bad idea. Because again, you can dump a stupid amount of speed ups in those events. But obviously you don't want to be cranking it out on things that aren't really all that valuable. At the same time, though, I would say, if anything, if you want to know more about like the cost of individual like fire crystal upgrades, I highly recommend checking the Discord, because there is in fact a guide out there that will tell you exactly the costs associated to it. But just from going up a stage in FC1, you can see it's going to be 60 million or so. So you do need a lot of resources during this event. It's one of those things that you're going to have a lot of time spent and a lot of energy spent. Now, like my alliance, it's right now it's 13 out of 100. It's VLT. It's the ruins of KAF. And if you're wondering, how did that go? How did that happen? Long story. Basically, 2 alliances came head to head, and by nightfall, it was very clear there was a victor. And the rest kind of abandoned the alliance, went their merry way to other alliances, and here we are. But again, I'm not going to speak to the event, to the effect of what happened, but where we're going from the future. And the future is I'm going to run this alliance, and I'm going to see through it. Now, of course, you guys probably do know, if you didn't already, that there's actually going to be an update coming up too. So we have Christmas celebration and then state transfer, and this is coming out tomorrow, which is going to be really exciting, since it sounds as though we'll finally be able to transfer, and that might be really cool depending on who that impacts. But whether that applies to us, I have no idea, but we'll have to wait and see. But there's a lot of interesting things in the works as far as if anything, right? Mostly all people, as far as the King of Icefield event is concerned, mainly 448, 453, 457, 461, and 468. I know from our experience anyway that the older states are always going to be the competition. And so we'll ultimately try to avoid, not getting ourselves ahead in any way possible. Obviously, the rewards that you're going to get in here is going to be, it's obviously going to have its payout, right? You're going to get Philly shards. You're going to get things that are going to help and benefit you in some fashion if you haven't already done Philly. Now, in my case, I've already done Philly, so it doesn't make as much sense for me to really focus down on these events too hard. It's, if anything, I'll probably try to focus on trying to do Alonzo. But again, being that he's a Hall of Chiefs, we're not a Hall of Chiefs, but Hall of Heroes hero, there's not a whole lot I can do about it in the grand scheme of things. But as far as King of Icefield goes, I would say that the main thing is I'll dump a lot of speeds probably in, probably doing the upgrades, which you'll do in the first stage. I think that's probably where I'll hit heavy, probably do the furnace and do the upgrades for the furnace. Probably upgrade my infirmary and get the FC1 infirmary done. And then from there, it's really just kind of micromanaging what benefits I see myself using down the road. But I would say that if anything, there's definitely going to be a huge advantage for the guy that's got a lot of charms saved up. As you can tell, I don't have a stupid amount saved up. So if I wanted to compete, it would take a considerable amount of money or time, of which neither I really don't want to focus too down on.
But again, that's kind of what you have to expect going into any of these events, especially like King of Icefield, is that it benefits the player that saves a stupid amount. As far as I know, there's not any use for the keys during this event, though. So, unless you're just happening to be low on shards for someone like Molly, for example, it's probably not going to be of much value to you. Needless to say, though, hopefully this little guide, if anything, encourages you going into the King of Icefield event. But again, if you want to know more information, check out the Whiteout Survival Discord. There's this stupid amount of information on there. And again, thank you guys for dropping by, and I'll see you guys next time.